welcome everyone to our next episode of the She Shakes the World interview series. And I am very excited and delighted to bring you Karine Bedard today. I want you to be open to listening to this fantastic conversation that we are about to have. That we are about to have, because we are going to be discussing sex positivity. And Karine is the host of the Breaking Free Authentically, the Sex Positive Relationship podcast. And I am really excited to bring you Karine today and her message. And I just want you to be open to listening to this conversation and receiving what you need to receive today from listening to what Karine has to say, because she is shaking the world in a beautiful way. And I just want to thank you, Karine, for being here, for sharing your energy on this podcast, and just let the listeners get to know you a little more. Just introduce yourself and say how it is that you shape the world, and then we will lead into our conversation.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. It's so wonderful to be here. I've been looking forward to our conversation. So
you're welcome.
Always interacting with you. So how do I shake the world? So my name is Karine Bedard, as she said. And I'm an elite relationship designer. And what that means is, well, let me explain a little bit, maybe in a different way. So I shake the world through sex positivity. And that is like, I have a huge desire to kick shame and guilt to the curb.
Yes.
When it comes to sexuality, our sexuality, and shift the religious and societal programming that we have in our world, and just rethink that and shift it with different information and a new way to look at things, which opens your mind to a whole different world and a whole different life and empowerment. And so my key word, I would say, is authenticity in everything that you do. And I think a lot of people, sexuality gets a bad rap sometimes. Yes. Because I think because it's not done with authenticity. It's not done in an empowered way. Like only one person feels empowered and someone else can be a victim, depending on their place in the shame guilt cycle of what their upbringing was, or what their views are. So the designer part is that so imagine that, you walk into a home that hasn't been updated in years. 20 years ago, you still have like the flower couch on the 4-screen carpet sitting there, and you've got the cross stitch on the wall that says, tied the knot in 1985 or whatever. And there's a like doily and a touch lamp on the side table, and it just feels not welcoming, and like it's just stagnant and stuck, right? It just doesn't feel great. But imagine now you've had an interior designer come in and has like planned with you what it is that you need and want, and what your desires are for like entertaining or hosting. What's your family like? What is the activities that you like to do together? Do you want like a movie studio? You update like the technology, so maybe voice activated commands or a flat screen TV with a smart TV, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, you can restructure your home. You can take down walls that aren't needed anymore. You can just change everything. Now, imagine walking into a space that's like that. The colors are fresh and they represent you. Well, how often do we redesign our relationships?
Good question.
So what I do with my big program, the relationship redesign, is I really help people come to terms with sex positivity and how it can be a part of their design. And some don't know much about it, and even like everything from monogamy to polyamory is an option of a design, but people are like, no, I'm monogamous. But what you don't even realize is within monogamy, there's like 4 areas that you can be monogamous. And throughout the ages, like monogamy used to be one partner for life, only one, right? And now people are serial monogamous, so it's like one partner at a time.
Got you.
So that's changed. And so we can be monogamous in 4 different areas, emotionally, sexually, socially, and practically. So, practically could involve like your finances and how you divide the chores and all these things in the home. And do you have outside help, or do you just do it yourself? You share your finances. Are you connected that way? Socially would be like, do you hang out only as a couple? Do you hang out with just your families, or do you have separate friends? And do you do things? Are you allowed to have guy friends if you're a girl? Are you allowed to have girlfriends if you're a guy? What's your work relationships like? So socially, some people are like, I remember being abhorred at the term work wife. I was like, what? Oh, it's so awful. How could it? But now it's like I have a completely different understanding of what that is, and how beautiful that can be in someone's life, rather than threatening, right? So there's socially monogamous. So how open are you in those areas? And then of course emotionally, like, do you have deep connections with other people, or do you keep that only for you and your spouse, or again with the opposite sex, or things like that? And then there's sexually, like, do you only share that with it, or do you have an open relationship sexually but not emotionally? I mean, there's all different varieties, but people don't even realize that within monogamy there's all like, ranges of openness within there to figure out. Beyond that, there's so much more too. Like, and so my job is to bring all the design elements, if you will. Like everything from, so I talk a lot about normalizing the ethical non-monogamy. And ethical is, I could call it consensual non-monogamy, but I prefer to call it ethical non-monogamy because I think it's about more than just consent. It's about being ethical and kind and respectful and honest. And there's so much more that goes into it. But when you open up your relationship ethically, then there's such a beautiful world. And like, personally, my friendships, my family, like I have a tribe that are just amazing people. And they're all sex positive. And the sex positive community allows for so much variance. It's not just black and white, which is really beautiful. So on one side of the spectrum for ethical non-monogamy, you've got swingers, and then on the other side you've got polyamorous. And swingers on the very like strict side of things are like, like maybe they will, we call it playing, like sexual encounters. It's mostly about sex and playing, and it's done as a couple, and often those couples don't necessarily play with the same people more than once, so they don't have any emotional entanglements, right? Like it's a like threesomes or sex clubs or whatever. And that is what they choose to do. And it's for them as a couple, just to like spice things up. And they're the focal point, which is awesome. It's really a lot of fun. But that's and then you've got the opposite spectrum where you've got polyamorous that are completely emotionally open, right? Like, so they have a lot of love to give. So they can they'll date separately, and their partners don't really have anything to do with each other. Right? There's no connection there necessarily. And even there's a lot of asexual polyamorous that it has nothing to do with sex, right? Like, so they just really enjoy loving romantic relationships and have like those connections. Sex isn't a part of that. So those are the two opposite extremes, right? And then there's everything in the middle.
And you completely open, like, until I met you, and it must have been about 6 months ago, we were in the same mastermind. Like, I hadn't even heard of many of the words that kind of you brought. So you brought a lot to my awareness, and I'm really grateful that you did. And it's opened my eyes, and I'm so grateful that you're here sharing on this podcast as well. And what was it that led you to wanting to highlight sex positivity, ethical non-monogamy? what led you to where you are now, to being able to talk about it as well? Because I imagine it's taken a lot of strength from within you to go, actually, I'm going to be open and I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to normalize, and I'm not going to let people shame me or tell me that I shouldn't be talking about this, you know. And I'm so grateful that you're able to, you know, come on here and share so authentically. What has led you to this point? What have you had to go through to get here, to be able to talk about it so comfortably and so openly?
That's such a great question. So I like to say, so my podcast is coming out. It won't be launched till next week. Hopefully, that is when it's going to be. But my first episode will likely be called Bible School Graduate Turned Playboy Enthusiast.
Wow. Okay. Got you.
So if that gives you any idea of what
Yes.
my story is, so I grew up in a very Christian, fundamentalist, evangelical Christian home.
Yes.
Okay. So like in my mind, Catholicism, a Catholic was not even Christian.
Okay.
Okay. That's how fundamentalist, evangelical I was. Okay.
Okay.
So I went to Bible school, Bible college, in Chicago, Moody Bible Institute, you know, like, and so and the thing is, I loved it. I've been a church pianist since I was 13. I was a church music major, and education. So like, I wanted to be like a pastor's wife and play the piano and teach Sunday school. You know what I mean? Like that was like my big dreams, right?
Wow.
But the thing is, like, I always was a sexual person, but I got shamed for that. Like masturbation was not okay in my household. And like I was 4 when I started masturbating. I just remember that because I remember getting in trouble. Right. And it was such an area. And so I like focused on this terrible thing that I did. And I'd always felt bad about that. But it was something that was just inherently a part of me. It was pleasurable. I have ADHD, which I never knew until I was an adult. And so I imagine that part of it was like just a sensory like release for me, or like a way to just calm myself or whatever. I mean, it has many uses. And now there's studies showing how masturbation is so healthy for you, and who knew,
Yeah, and it's so hard for many of us to talk about it, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it was just like, so anyway, so that's my background, right? So, and then I went to Bible school. I got married at 22 and I was a virgin. Okay. That was the most important thing, is to save yourself till marriage. And I mean, I was boy crazy. I mean, I'm a sexual being. Physical touch is one of my main love languages. I love to cuddle. I love to be close, kissing, whatever. And I remained a virgin. Like it was hard work. Like I really like, it was a very conscious, intentional thing. Okay. Because it was sacred. It was something you don't do with someone else. Right.
Yes.
So fast forward, there 10 years ago, there was a big shift, and someone very, very close to me, like deconverted and, left their faith. And all of a sudden I was like, what do I do now? Like, and so when you go, you can either go, okay, well, I'm not gonna have anything to do with you, but I couldn't not have anything to do with this person. Like, they were an integral part of my life. So I decided I was going to do the research and just look into it myself, because like, what else was I going to do? It was just like a big deal. So anyways, that started me on a journey of discovery and searching things. And so I was like, at the time we had Sirius Radio subscription, and they had a Playboy radio channel. And I had always been taught that, those sex people, heathens, all that, have no self-love. They have no self-respect. They can't possibly love without Christ. Like they have no joy in their lives. The world has no joy. They're just miserable, basically. We're the only ones who have the truth, and we're happy, right? Like, and I was like, okay.
Were you feeling happy? Were you feeling that yourself, or was it just like what you'd been told? Were you
Yes and no. Like, again, I'd been I basically, I'm a very intelligent person. And so I have a lot of thoughts. I'm very like, I think through everything. But as a Christian, I had to like shut that off. Do you know what I mean? Like the inquisitive side of me, I had to shut that off and to be oblivious and happy and like not question things. And that was just called having faith.
Yes. Okay.
So I mean that's how I attribute it. And so like there was a beautiful part of that where I just like gave everything to the Lord, and everything's going to work out, and I had a very like connected relationship with the Lord. So we always said we're not religious, we have a relationship with Christ, and I truly believe that. So I didn't have any doubts, or like I didn't struggle like some people, right? Like I just accepted, and I thought submission was a beautiful word because I'd been taught that. And just so, I mean, I would say that yes, I was happy.
Yes.
But I didn't have anything to compare it to. I would say I'm a lot happier now.
Okay. So how
right?
did
Like
you, yeah,
the
how did you
depth
transition?
of joy that I have now is such on a different level.
Yeah.
It's so true and real, and like I feel so empowered and love who I am, and I can think for myself, and I can but let me go back to how the journey started. So go ahead, you had a question.
I was going to ask you how you transitioned from being in the strict religion to where you are now.
So I thought, okay, I'm gonna go listen to the worst of the worst, like these sex people are the worst of the worst. And I had Playboy radio, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to it. So I was like listening to Playboy radio like 24/7, except for when my kids were around, of course. So, but I was listening, and I was like, this stuff should be like terrible to me, like, and but what I discovered was that these were my people. Like
Wow.
they were intelligent. They spoke like they didn't just talk about the weather, about what God wanted them to do. Or what. They were just like real about their desires and fantasies, and they didn't shame each other for it. They didn't judge each other. They had so much self-respect and respect for each other.
Yes.
And they honored each other. They were consensual. They were honest. They rejoiced in each other's sexuality. And I was just blown away. And I was like, what? Like these people are beautiful. Like they're beautiful souls and so genuine. And I was like, I thrive on genuine, and I feel like everyone around me is like not willing to be genuine. Like we always have to put on this facade of being like perfect or spiritual or godly. And I was like, I don't think I have real friends. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't have real connections.
Wow.
I was like, I just desired that. I felt so alone so often, but I had Christ, so I was okay. It was just like, and it's all about perspective too, but like you don't know what you don't know. And the worst part was that, well, the worst part and best part, I guess, was that everything I've been taught was not what I was seeing about these people. And I was like, okay, well, what else isn't true? Like what else have I been told? Because I felt myself superior to like Catholics and I was like the pianist for this big choir that I played for every year, and it was like a lot of different denominations coming together, but I always knew that I knew more than them. Like, come on, it's like such a superiority feeling. Anyways, so that just led me on this journey to just start to look at different things. And I remember the day when I looked around my living room. I had an a cappella ladies group, and they were all like different denominations. And again, I thought I was the only one who was evangelical and knew stuff, right? So I had to I couldn't be totally real. And I looked around the room and I went, I am no different than these ladies. Like, I was so excited.
Wow.
I am no better. I am no different. I am just one of them. And all of a sudden, the playing field just became, the whole world was like an even playing field to me. And I had the ability to love someone at any level that I wanted.
That's
And I
amazing.
just felt this like weight lift off of me. Like
Mm.
and it's like I feel it right now. Like
I
I'm
can
getting
feel I
stuck.
am tingling right now as you're talking.
And I don't, the thing is, like, when you think you have the truth, or when you're told that you have the truth, like, why would you ever look at anything else? Like, I was like, why would you, you know? But this is the way that I came about it. So for me, breaking free authentically was about becoming sex positive and allowing that truth to sort of become a part of me and allow that
Yeah.
part of me to be seen and to be real and to not shame and squash that, you
Yeah.
know?
Because that's
So
part of who you are. That's who you were born to be.
yeah, but and I think we all are. Like I don't think it's any accident that religion has made sex the bad thing.
Yes.
It's the thing that we all, I mean, there's asexual people, but in general, even asexual people desire like connection and closeness and what a lot of people consider um inappropriate
Mm.
relationships, right? Like, and so
Yeah.
I really want to normalize sort of like the physical and emotional love of platonic relationships
Hmm.
as well, because
Yeah.
I think that that's missing in our culture, especially, I'm going to say, especially the US culture. Like,
Mm.
there's such an independence, and like, it's so like, me, I can do it. I don't need anybody. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, yes, I'm a strong, independent person, but if I didn't have my friends, if I didn't have my cuddle buddies and my loving friends who told me they love me and who I could just talk to and be
Mm.
completely real with, life would not be the same
Yeah.
at all. And so part of my world that I want people to understand is that it's not about the sex as much as it is about being open about sexuality
Yeah.
and our desire as people to connect on a deep level. And that can look different for different people. And we shouldn't be shaming that, as
Absolutely.
inappropriate
Yes.
and things like that.
Why do you think it has been so deemed inappropriate? Why do you think it has been so repressed?
I think because it's a good way to control people, for one.
Mm.
Right? Because the shame cycle causes you to need to repent, which means you need a God to forgive you, and then you're fine again, and then you can go live your life. But then, of course, and the other thing is like, um, if I tell you not to do something, or do you have children?
Yes.
Okay, so if you tell your kids don't do something,
They're likely to go and do it.
they're on the edge of wanting to do it, or they're
Yeah.
thinking about not doing
Yes.
it, or they're
Yeah.
thinking about how to do it without getting caught, or all of a sudden becomes something that's off limits. We
Yeah.
tend to think. So there's this huge epidemic of like porn addiction and sex addiction, and I'm like, you'll find it in most Christian communities, for
Mm.
one.
Okay.
It's rampant in Christian communities where husbands are having porn addictions.
Because they're
Well,
being kept repressed.
right. Well, what if porn's like allowed and it's no big deal? Then all of a sudden it's not a big deal, right? Like my partner, he can watch porn whenever he wants. He doesn't. I mean, he
Yeah.
does sometimes, but it's not something he dwells on. It's not something he has to hide.
Mm.
It's not something he can't tell me about. He
Yes.
can tell
So,
me anytime, and it's like, if he finds something he enjoys, oh, then he can tell me about it and talk about it, and
yeah.
then we can be like, "Oh, well, hey, maybe we could try that," or maybe da, 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 da."
And what would you say to someone who wants to be more open in their relationship with their partner? Even let's just start there. They're in their relationship with their partner and they want to be able to express them more sexually, and they want to be able to talk to them more and just be more open generally. How could they begin to do that if they are feeling slightly repressed, or how can they begin to
Mhm.
open themselves up more?
Well, um, most people say that communication is the most important thing in a relationship,
Mm.
and I disagree. So
Mm.
for me, an empowered relationship looks like connection,
Yeah.
safety, and novelty.
Okay.
So if you are not connected to someone in any way, so it could be love languages, attachment styles, activities that you like, right? Like things that bring you together. Focus on those kinds of things to
Okay.
create some sort of connection.
Yeah.
Like don't talk about what's wrong in the relationship and what you don't, and don't try to communicate about everything. Just find some connection, find some things you enjoy to do, and then learn to create safety, which means holding space for someone without judgment,
Mm,
and encouraging them to have their own thoughts, encouraging them to have thoughts that are different than yours, encouraging them to have fantasies. And then, and only then can you start to just speak authentically from your heart.
amazing.
And you can start to say, hey, I have this fantasy that I've been thinking about. Oh, I'd like to hear it, like no judgment, right? Like
Mm,
let's talk about it. I'm curious. Just because you have a fantasy doesn't mean you have to do it. Okay. So that's really important.
mm,
So I like to really normalize fantasy and desire. That is just my fantasy and my desire. It doesn't make it wrong. There's nothing wrong about my desires and my fantasies. And that's part of that breaking that shame and guilt cycle, right?
yeah.
If we can lose that, then we can start to have a conversation. I remember when I deconverted that, my partner at the time, we were able to start talking about things we never had talked about before.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy moly. Like, I just was like, what? I thought you were so straight laced,
Mm,
and that was the image that they were trying to create as a good Christian man, right?
yes. Yeah.
And all of a sudden you peel off those layers, and then I remember like actually something really shifted um the day that I gave him permission to practice masturbating. It was had some to do with tantric.
Mm,
There's a tantric technique where the man like brings himself close to climax and then eases it off, and brings that energy into his whole body
mhm.
and allows his whole body to feel that. And it's kind of like an edging technique, but you have to practice that in order to be good at that,
Mhm.
because a lot of men just don't know how to keep themselves from ejaculating, right?
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, you practice. I'll take the kids to the pool and then you practice. And he
Yeah.
was like, what? Because on our honeymoon,
Yeah.
he, I was like, you can't do that. Like, we're married. Like, you can't,
Yes.
that's my job. Like, you
Yes.
can't have your own sexual interaction without me because we're
Mm,
like
couple.
connected now.
Yeah. Yeah.
This independent man was like, okay,
Mm, yeah.
what? You have to give each other space to be your own person.
Yeah.
I remember there was a couple who got married at my Bible school. And I remember this vividly. She was planning her wedding. It was the girls' dorm. We had separate dorms because of Bible school. The guys weren't allowed in our dorms. And so she was talking about, I don't know if you're familiar with the unity candle. So you have two separate candles,
Okay.
and then you bring your candles together and you light the middle candle,
Hmm.
and then you blow the candles out and you put them in the stand. And
Okay.
now the unity candle represents you two coming together as
Yeah.
one. So it was a lot of like oneness um, analogies. Like for us, we used white wine and red wine and poured them together,
Mm,
and they can never be separated, which is very much my mentality. Like if I'm married, I can never not be married. It's forever, no
yeah.
matter what. Divorce wasn't in my vocabulary. Okay,
Yeah.
so this was the thing. So she's like, I'm gonna do the unity candle thing, but I'm not blowing out the separate candles. I'm gonna keep them burning and have the unity. And I was like, oh, that you can't be individuals. You have to be yoked. You
Yeah.
have to be connected. And I just thought, what a rebel, what I mean?
Wow.
But you know what?
Yeah.
That would have dramatically changed
Mm,
my life. I didn't realize how codependent I was all those
mm,
years. Um, because I was so focused on making him comfortable all the time.
Mm.
You know, my job as a wife was to make sure that uh, my husband doesn't go without, you know, like I was never going to say no to sex. Turns out he didn't really want sex all that much, so I never really had to say no. So I was like, please, can we have sex? You know, it turned into that.
Yeah.
But I was never going to say no.
Mm.
And I made sure that everything I did was, you know, like put him first or whatever, which caused a lot of tension because if you don't think about the person that you're with and the individual that they are and what they actually need and what they actually desire, you're going to miss a lot of things based on your
Yeah.
programming, right?
Yeah.
So, like for him, it would have been much better if I just kind of knew who I was and what I really wanted
Mm.
and set what my desires and fantasies were, because he would have wanted to do that, but instead I'd give up what I wanted to make sure
Mm.
I accommodate someone else, which is very much people pleasing,
Yeah.
and that comes from a lot of like attachment trauma and
Yes,
all kinds of things growing
absolutely.
up, which now I understand as a
Yes.
coach, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know those things, although
Mm.
relationships, like literally, relationships have been my jam
Mm.
since high school. I would read for fun relationship books. Like
Yeah.
that was my reading. I didn't read fiction. I read like psychology books and books about relationships and how to have a good relationship, how to have a good marriage, and how to communicate properly, how to say all the right words. Okay, so that's when I get back to the like communication. I knew all the right words. I knew how to phrase a sentence to
Mm.
communicate well. I knew how to say all the right things.
But was it actually what you wanted to say?
Yes, but I didn't feel safe to say it.
Okay. Mm.
So if you don't feel safe to
Mm.
say it, if you feel like you're going to be judged for it, if you feel like you're not being heard or that you don't feel connected so that you can feel safe,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you say, you're going to say it and then you're going to have like a twist in your mind, or you're going to feel resentful or something, right?
Mm.
Whereas if you learn to both feel come from a place of connection and then both be open and hold space for someone else's
Yeah.
feelings and thoughts and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah. Without
it
taking it
doesn't,
personally, but
yeah, it
come back.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter so much what words you use.
Yeah.
It's the intention and the safety. So here's my advice for my 19-year-old self.
Yes,
If I have to
please.
go back, I say this to everybody. It's like, how do you feel in your body
Mm.
around people?
Okay.
Because if I would have understood that around my people, I feel calm and relaxed and safe.
Yeah.
I don't feel like excited and all like giddy and da 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 da. I can have moments of that, but
Mm.
in general, I feel like I'm in a safe place. There was very few people in my high school, for instance, very few friends that I could just be completely myself with.
Yeah.
And none of those people were in the youth group except for one.
Mm.
Um, it was my band friends, it was like my community. But I spent so much time trying to get the edgy people to like me and to understand me.
Mm.
Whereas like the people I don't feel safe with, they're not my people. I don't need to waste my energy on them. I
Yeah.
can be nice, but I don't need their approval. I don't need them to, you know, and I think it's beautiful. Like I have these conversations with my kids now. My two oldest girls are out of the house now. They live on their own. They're at school, which is so crazy. But my 16-year-old son, like we have conversations about this all the time at school, and like he totally gets this concept, which I'm so thankful for. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't care. He's he's
Yeah.
bisexual. He could come out about that, no problem. He is comfortable with who he is.
Yeah.
People don't like him, it doesn't matter. He's got his group of friends and he's happy. And
Yeah.
I mean, high school would have been so much easier if it didn't matter, if I just knew who my people were and that was good.
Yeah. Wow.
And I never felt that way with my ex-husband.
Yeah. But you feel
Like
that.
from the day that I met him, I was very excited. I had excited energy or whatever. but I never felt like calm and safe ever. Like, and he's not a bad person. He's a great person. But like, I never felt that. There was never that, like, some people you just click with and it's just like so easy. And there's just like this conversation. I can talk with anyone. I never have been able to have a conversation with him that flowed ever, ever, ever,
Wow.
ever.
Yeah. Wow.
But
Yeah.
no one taught me that that was something to look for, right?
Yeah.
Like very different parameters.
Yeah.
Someone who's a good godly guy and who, hasn't had sex and who,
Yeah. It was never about how you feel. And I think what I'm hearing from you is it's about how you feel that matters, not about whether it's the right yeah, I get that. Yeah.
it's about being able to be authentic.
Yes. And it's about being able to allow yourself to feel what you truly want to feel and say what you truly want to say as well, which is not easy for a lot of us. And I feel that people listening to this will hopefully have taken permission to allow themselves to just express who they are, express themselves, and know that that's okay. For sure. Karine, this has been like eye-opening. It's been really, really fascinating conversation. Thank you for just sharing yourself and your message, and with just openness and honesty. And I can really feel that. And I think and I believe that people will have taken a lot from listening to you. If they want to reach out to you to find out more about your podcast, about, if they are struggling, how can they do that? How can they reach out to you and connect with you on a deeper level?
So you can go to my Instagram at Karine Bedard Coaching.
Okay.
And that's probably where you're going to have the most information at the time, because I'm updating my website. But my website is Karine Bedard. It's either Karine Bedard, you could go to KarineBedard.com.
Yes.
But I will be updating it. But it does have some basic information. It talks about my Breaking Free program, and I have a group program too, called Designer Relationships, which, so there's options like that. But my other program is the relationship redesign. And that is like really dear to my heart, because really what I get to do is take couples that are interested and curious and want to experience the lifestyle. We call it the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Not swinging or whatever. And the lifestyle incorporates all the sex positivity, which I think is super, super important. Like people think, oh, I can't be in the lifestyle. I can't be a swinger. I don't want to have sex with other people. That's okay. That's what I say. I'm hosting an event on Friday at the sex club. And people are like, oh, you don't understand. I want people to know that coming to a sex club, I told my girls, actually safer. I would feel better about them coming to a sex club than to go to a regular club, and they're 20 and 18, because like they're going to be safe there. Wow. Right? Because there's an etiquette and there's rules and there's consent and there's respect, and it's a different vibe. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to see sex all over. And it's like, no, it's not like that. You walk in, it's a classy place. There's a bar, a dance floor, a DJ, couches. Yeah. That's what you've got. Okay. So it's a total vibe. You can dress as sexy or as not sexy as you want. You just imagine,
just turn up as yourself, can't you? Feel safe. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And imagine like you can wear whatever you want and not be slut shamed. Things you couldn't wear on the outside, but you just feel good in.
Yes.
You're actually honored for wearing that. You feel good. People flirt with you. There's like, it's a flirting environment. It's fun. If you're okay with it, like I can kiss my friends, and it's just so fun to get to kiss and interact and hug. Every time I get there, my friends are like, and they pick me up, and swing me around. Like, this is the kind of greeting I get almost every time I'm there from so many people. They're so excited to see me. And this is the family, this is the tribe that I'm a part of. And most of the time when I go to the club, there's zero sex that happens, because there's no sex happening there.
Yes. Okay.
There's a back area. So you can have an on-premises club or an off-premises club. And so there's a back area and there's a hallway. At this particular club, there's a hallway with private rooms. Some of them have windows. So if you want to watch, you can. If you want to put on a show, you can be in there and put on a show for people. And that's a lot of fun. That's where it ends for some people. A couple, you're dancing on the, my partner and I now, We do this sometimes, and we're like dancing, having a good time, and we're kissing or whatever, and be like, hey, you want to go play in the back? So we'll go get a private room, and we'll get a window one sometimes, and we'll put on a show for someone, but it's about us.
Yeah.
And we just like get to enjoy each other, and it's a really sexy vibe. And then we just go back to the dance floor when we're done, like it's just really fun to just be in that environment. So a lot of people go just to spice things up and add novelty to their own relationship, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to interact with someone. So there's you can be a voyeur, which you like to watch, or an exhibitionist, put on a little bit of a show. There's also another area where you have to be naked. So it's like open beds and couches and things like that. And you can play back there. And there's another room that's like, they call it the orgy room. So there's like 4 big beds together. And everything is like covered in vinyl, and there's cleaners, and you have towels. So like, it's all very like clean and safe. There's condoms and lube, like everything. You have to use condoms. No means no. Like there's a whole bunch of rules and etiquette, There's a kink room as well. But what I'm getting at is you can be a voyeur, you can be an exhibitionist. Soft swap or soft swinging, some people call that. You can just do everything but intercourse with other people if you want. And then intercourse is reserved only for your partner.
Yeah.
So there's that. Some people feel comfortable at that level, and you can stay at that level forever, or you can start there and move forward to full swap, which is full swap. Sorry, my computer was unplugged. And full swap is where you can have an intercourse with other people. Some people have intercourse but no kissing, so that's a bit more emotional for them. They reserve that for there's all kinds of boundaries and things that you can decide for yourself, and that's my job, is to help you figure out if you want to try out this world, if you want to experience it. I'm like your warm blanket.
You'll help people feel
I will help them and discover exactly where it is. And the thing is, you can jump in with both feet, and you can jump out and dry your feet off. You haven't ruined anything, right? Like you can try something and not regret it for the rest of your life. It is possible. And the other thing is, there's a lot of wonderful resorts and cruises and stuff that are lifestyle. And it's wonderful. So I travel with my clients to make sure that they have a wonderful time, and they have someone to debrief with, or to help them learn the rules, or not feel nervous. And I can tell them, what kind of clothing to bring, and the theme nights and things like that, so a lot of times there's fun themes or whatever. Anyways, all that to say,
KarineBedard.com is where they find out all about this, all about you, and how they can get help and support.
And on my Instagram, you can go to my bio, and you can download a little bit more about sort of the coaching. You can join my Facebook group, which is called Breaking Free to Be Authentically Me, an oasis of authenticity and vulnerability.
Perfect.
And so I'm going to be growing with that.
And I'm looking forward to watching you grow with it as well. Thank you.
So very fun.
Oh no, this has been, I'm sure, eye-opening for many people, but in a really, really positive way. And I just thank you for just sharing so openly and just normalizing everything, normalizing sexuality. And I think we need that. So thank you so much, Karine.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.